Reunited, and it feels so good, Johnny. The Halos trade for CJ Cron and Randal Grichuk. And the only question that we're asking today is, can they hit with runners in scoring position? Please let us know. Let's find out together. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click that bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, you and I have been fans of this team for years, and in the last decade or so, we haven't had a lot of excitement around the trade deadline, but this year is a completely different story, and we're going to get into all of that on today's show. We're going to recap the games in Toronto, the 2 losses and the 1 win, and just to let you know, it's the only place you can go to talk Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday. We're here. We're talking about everything, the good, the bad, and everything in between, and we're glad that you're here with us. If you're a Locked On Everydayer, shout it out in the comments below the YouTube video, or if you're on the audio side, come on over to YouTube and leave your comment there. We'd love to hear from you. Mike, let's get into the trade news that the Halos made on Sunday night. It's a reunion of sorts, a Halos reunion with CJ Cron and Randal Grichuk.
Yeah, they're coming on over from the Colorado Rockies, and we traded away Jake Madden and Mason Albright. So, Johnny, let's talk about CJ for just a moment.
I'd love to talk about CJ.
He's batting .260, a .304 on-base percentage, .476 slugging, and a .780 OPS. He has 11 home runs and 32 RBIs. But here's the big question. How does he do with runners in scoring position? Johnny, he's had 56 at-bats with runners in scoring position. Here's his slash line: 250, 279, 554 and 832, 5 home runs and 25 RBIs. But the one that I think is really important, because we seem to be in this situation often, is runners in scoring position with 2 outs.
Yes.
He's had 30 at bats. Here's his slash line: 300, 300, 633, 933 with 3 home runs and 14 RBIs.
633 slugging with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. My goodness, that's fantastic.
How about that? Maybe making contact. How about that, right? So the splits with CJ are about the same versus lefties and righties, so it doesn't matter who's on the mound. Now, he does have a 93 weighted runs created plus, 100 is average, so that's not great. But, Johnny, I love this stat: a 358 expected WOBA, which is a weighted on-base average, which is really good.
Can I say something, too? He's played 55 games this season for the Rockies, and obviously, they're not in contention. They haven't been in contention. So I'm hopeful that CJ getting more playing time. Paul Holden from Locked On Rockies said that since he's come back this season, all he's done is hit for power. So,
great.
Really excited to hear that from Paul. Paul said he's excited to be part of the trade conversations because his team is out of it. So he's like, at least they still get to participate.
Making some moves.
Also, just the fact that we're in the playoff race. He's back home with the Angels. I wonder if it'll be awkward having Rengifo in the same infield as CJ Cron, like it might be with Trout and Grichuk in the same outfield. Let me talk about Randal Grichuk for a minute. Man, he's batting a .312 average this season, a .367 on base percentage. Mike, a .490 slugging.
Yeah.
.490. That's fantastic. You know, I always say you want that 500 mark. So for a guy like Grichuk to hit around 500 in slugging is great. And 821 OPS, which is also fantastic. 8 home runs, 27 RBIs. Let me talk to you about his runners in scoring position stats. 58 at bats. He's batting with a .310 average, a .369 on base, .397 slugging, and a .766 OPS. No home runs, but 19 RBIs. And then runners with scoring position with 2 outs. He's had 24 opportunities, 292, 414 on base, 375 slugging, a 789 OPS, 8 RBIs. Again, no home runs there. He's much better versus lefties than he is against righties, but he does hit well against righties. And he's having a really solid season, a 117 weighted runs created plus. That's 17% better than league average. He's crushing left-handed pitching, which means, Mike, that now that Taylor Ward has moved to the 60-day injured list, we'll talk about his injury in the next segment. However, it doesn't look like he's coming back for the regular season. Right. Obviously, the face issue and the damage that was done there is going to move him to the 60-day. It makes you wonder if there's a world where Mickey and Grichuk split some time as platoon guys, and the fact that he's crushing lefties, might see that more often. Of course, Kevin Padlo was DFA'd. These are interesting deals because, like I mentioned before, the Angels traded CJ Cron to the Rays for a player to be named later, which ended up being Luis Rengifo.
Yep.
And then I actually liked this move when it happened. The Angels traded Peter Borges and Randal Grichuk to the Cardinals for David Freese and Fernando Salas. That's when they made their playoff run because they had Freese at the corner over there at third base. They really needed a strong third baseman. That was a great move. One of the few great moves that Trader Jerry DePoto.
Yeah.
Mike, but listen to this. They've traded a ton of pitching so far at the deadline and even in the offseason. Like we traded for Hunter Renfroe and Gio Urshela. Here are all the names I can list for you. Connor Van Scoyoc, Jake Madden, Mason Albright, Coleman Crowe, Elvis Peguero, Jansen Junk, Adam Seminaris, Alejandro Hidalgo, Landon Marceau, and Kai Bush. Let's see, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pitchers.
Wow.
Good thing we drafted 19
20.
in that season. Yeah, that
Yeah.
2021 season. By the middle of August, here's where I have hope. This lineup could look something like this. Zach Neto, batting leadoff, playing at shortstop. Mike Trout, Ohtani, Moustakas, Drury, CJ Cron, Hunter Renfroe, Logan O'Hoppe, and some combination of Randal Grichuk and Mickey Moniak. They could be in there on the bench. You got Grichuk and Moniak. You got Escobar. You got Matt Thaiss. Then your rotation looks like Ohtani, Giolito, Sandoval, Canning, Detmers, Tyler Anderson. You got a strong bullpen now with Carlos Estevez and Ronaldo Lopez locking down the back of that bullpen. So another exciting move that we had over the weekend was Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez coming in as well. So how you feeling about all this, Mike? Tell me.
It's interesting that the Angels, first of all, I love that they are involved, and those people that were really struggling with the fact that the Angels lost 2 out of 3 this weekend and immediately went back to, well, I guess we're sellers now. Like you would be a terrible leader because leaders make decisions and then they stick with those decisions. And what GM PM is teaching us is that he is a leader and he is going to make the moves to make this team better. So I love these moves. I know that there's a lot of like young arms that we've given away, but here's the reality when it comes to somebody like CJ Cron and somebody like Randal Grichuk is that there is a leak source that said that hitters are just not available. Like people are not getting rid of their hitters. Take Nolan Arenado, for example. He is not going to be traded, and he was not going to be traded to the Dodgers, and they've come out and they've said that. And so there's not a lot of elite hitting that's available. And what the Angels need is not necessarily elite hitting because they have an elite hitter in Shohei Ohtani. And then when Mike Trout comes back, but what they need are those pieces that fill in the gaps. And when you have Grichuk out there, I think he is a very lateral move, maybe even a bit better than Taylor Ward, especially in the outfield, right? And so I think that that's a great move. What this also does is that CJ Cron can play first base, Moose can move to third, and then Escobar can kind of dance around that infield and be a switch hitter for you. I also love this because I think it gives Trey Cabbage an opportunity to develop more in the minor leagues, and it gets Squid off of this major league roster. If he isn't set back down, then I don't know what they're doing because he's a hole in that lineup and he's been a hole on defense, and you can't have that. And with Zach Neto obviously coming back, I think that you can have him play short. And if he's not there, then I think Rengifo is sufficient at short. My gut tells me it'll be probably Stefanik that they send down and they keep Velasquez, but I would rather switch that around because I like Stefanik's bat more than I like Velasquez. And then Johnny, with these two guys that they're trading away in Jake Madden and Mason Albright, all of the specs on them right now is that Albright's going to be maybe a middle of the innings, middle relief type of guy. And then when it comes to somebody like Jake Madden, the conversation has been like maybe a 5th starter or maybe a long reliever. And a lot of these guys that we've given up, it hasn't been too heartbreaking outside of, I think, Kai Bush specifically, because Kai is just a really, really strong pitcher with a lot of potential. But overall, I love these moves, and I love that Perry is going all in and making sure that this team has everything that it needs to not only succeed, but actually get to the playoffs and maybe even deeper in the playoffs.
I just like that CJ Cron's back. I don't think we ever should have traded him, but obviously it was we talked about this before. It was the Albright effect, where all of the great first basemen we had over the years had to get moved because of Albert Pujols.
Yeah.
The other part of this, Mike, is you and I said before the season even started, if the Angels find themselves in the hunt, they got to pull a Phillies. They got to pull a Braves. They have to do everything they can to push, because we've seen teams push before, and this is pushing. This is pushing your chips in, and you're giving up a lot of arms in your system. And yes, we can talk ourselves into, well, they might only be this or they might only be that. And that definitely, I think, is part of it, right? If we're being honest, it's like it does suck to lose arms in the minor league system. However, you got to go for it. And this is what they're doing. And I think it's really exciting and definitely worth it. And we'll talk about why it might be worth it in our last segment. But before we get there, the Angels are playing the Braves today at 4:20 Pacific time. Don't snicker, you hooligans. Griffin Canning versus Charlie Morton. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, the Halos got one hit with runners in scoring position this weekend, and it was a good one. And we're going to recap the 3 games from this past weekend. We'll do that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. You can take your swing at betting on MLB games on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. Just $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 that you can spend on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run of the game. All of this is on an app that's safe and secure and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get that $200 in bonus bets. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Remember, FanDuel is an official partner of Major League Baseball.
Thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Locked On Everydayers, join us every day this week as we recap each of the games against those Atlanta Braves. Best team in baseball, Mike, but they're not without their faults, I should say, because we saw the Boston Red Sox sweep them. Maybe the Halos can play up this week, or maybe I'll just eat a big slice of humble pie after having said that. Either way, you can catch the Angels playing those Braves on SiriusXM with the SXM app. You'll get the hometown broadcast, every pitch of the hometown broadcast with Terry and Mark, and you're in for a good time. That you can do all of that on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Let me take you back to Friday. The Angels lost game 1 of this 3-game weekend series against the Blue Jays 4-1. And the big story of this game and really of the weekend was with the Angels with runners in scoring position. They were 0 for 7 in this game. And then to kind of emphasize the fact that the Angels were struggling offensively, there was this moment where Matt Chapman was caught on camera talking to his manager. And it was after Shohei hit his 39th home run on Friday. And he said, why did we pitch to him? He's the only effing guy on the team that can hit. And Johnny, I actually didn't have a problem with that. Did you have a problem with that?
I didn't have a problem with that because, number one, I'm not going to say it's true because, of course, we have guys who can hit.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it was true. I mean, Ohtani hits that home run super early on. And it's something that you say in the moment, Mike. You're fired up. I don't have any ill will against Matt Chapman. Of course, Phil Nevin said, that's just team banter. The guys, they're aware of it. However they want to use it, that's fine. I mean, just because it was caught on camera doesn't mean stuff like that doesn't get said all the time about other players and other teams and things like that. And of course, Matt Chapman is frustrated because they pitched to Ohtani. It's been a huge conversation all week long about pitching to Ohtani, going back to that Yankees series, pitching to Ohtani. And again, he's leading the league in home runs. He is one of the few guys who can hit. If it were the Red Sox, if it were the Yankees, if it were anybody else, Matt Chapman would be saying the same thing. So right. I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with it. And quite honestly, Johnny, like the other players on this team have to prove that they can actually protect Ohtani. And I know that we've had Mickey Moniak behind Ohtani, but at this point, there isn't anybody that you're intimidated by. And so why aren't you putting him on base almost every single time, if not every single time? So I didn't have a problem with it. And the fact that we couldn't hit with runners in scoring position this weekend just really turned the volume up on that conversation, because quite frankly, it was really pathetic to watch this team try to get runners on and get runners over and get runners in.
Can I talk about that for a minute? First of all, we talked about the Matt Chapman thing. We talked about the Alec, or we're going to talk about the Alek Manoah issue, and maybe I'll save that thought for a little bit later. But regarding the runners in scoring position, I know that we've had this issue all season long, right? Runners in scoring position. That's why it's great that CJ Cron and Randal Grichuk are coming to this team, right? And did somebody reach out to us? Somebody said, are you guys going to go in on the Angels about this runners in scoring position issue? And normally I would, Mike. Normally I would. And we have. And we've been there. And we've talked about this over and over again. We talked about how the lineup construction doesn't lend itself well to hitting with runners in scoring position. Right now they're at a bit of a loss because of no Trout and Drury. Of course, that's going to affect it. I think Mickey Moniak was in over his head trying to protect Ohtani. He's swinging at fastballs above the zone, stuff he doesn't normally chase, things like that. So now that I've made that caveat, let me just say that when you have games like Friday and Saturday, where the strike zone is the shape of, like, you know, those big blobs you jump into on the river and then you bounce off of them and then you fall into the river. When the strike zone looks like one of those, where it's amorphous and it shapes all over the place and it's shape shifting the entire game. And even when you think you figured out where the umpire is calling strikes and balls, it changes again. It changes the third time, the fourth inning, the fifth inning. It's changing constantly. That messes up your entire approach at the plate, because pitches that you think are outside the zone are now strikes. Pitches that you think are strikes are now called as balls. And so you have no approach at the plate. You have no strategy. You have no ability to know when you should swing and when you should not swing and hold back and take the walk. So to me, first of all, there was about 2.5 runs in favor of the Blue Jays, according to umpire scorecards for, I think it was Saturday's game. And this is not a knock at Blue Jays fans. I know people were talking about the umpire scorecards in the comments and the zone and everything, but basically it comes down to umpires being terrible, and they were awful in this series. So when you do not have a good concept of the strike zone, you can't take walks, you can't swing at pitches that you want to swing at, because if you don't swing at the outside pitch or the inside pitch or the pitch that's too low below the zone, then you're not sure if it's going to be a ball or a strike. And so for me, I understand the Angels have trouble with runners in scoring position, but this was 110% an issue with the umpires this weekend and taking the bat out of the hands of the hitters and them not being able to deliver. Because when you have the bases loaded, of course you want to take a walk. Of course you want to swing at something in the zone. You have all that, but not when the zone is moving all over the place like a pet chasing a laser pointer. Like, good grief, man. So that's my rant. I'm so sick of this terrible umpiring that we've had all season long, not just for the Angels, but across MLB.
John, I haven't been able to do this in probably a year, so I'm going to do it right now. You ready?
Oh, great. Here we go.
I completely disagree with you. Yeah, and here's why I completely disagree with you. Because the Angels had a lot of swings and misses. They had opportunities, and they couldn't make contact. And I get that you're swinging at some pitches. Maybe you're not sure where they're going to be in the zone, but they had a lot of pitches in the zone. Trey Cabbage had a lot of pitches in the zone. Rengifo had a lot of pitches in the zone, and they still missed it. And,
I get it.
And that's the problem with this team is if they didn't have this history of being terrible with runners in scoring position, then maybe we have somewhat of an argument. And I do know that the strike zone was all over the place, but quite honestly, like, these are major league ball players that have to come through. And the fact that they were terrible and had one hit with runners in scoring position, you can't just blame that all on the umpires, which is why I love that they're bringing in some other hitters, because I am so sick and tired of seeing guys that shouldn't even be on the major league roster up when it counts. And it always seems like it's Velasquez in the lineup up when it counts. And that's just So annoying, Johnny. And it continued. It continued the next day, and the Angels lost 6-1 the next day. But really, the major story in this game is Taylor Ward and getting hit in the face, and now he's out for the rest of the year, John. And that's a bummer because Ward got hurt last year running into the wall when he was doing really well, and then he was never the same. And now he's heating up in July, leading the league in RBI since the All-Star break. And then he gets hit. And that was just so heartbreaking. And I know that we've given him a hard time on this show because we'd love to see a bit more hustle and maybe a bit more of some clutch hitting. He's really starting to prove himself, and then it gets taken away that quick.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part, especially when you consider how many injuries the Angels have had this season. 17 total guys on the IL, the most in Major League Baseball. And it's frustrating because Perry went and built this team to have depth because we knew that there would be injuries. But who knew that there would be this many injuries on this team?
Right.
And a lot of it is freak stuff. Like this was a total accident. I'm not going to get mad at Alek Manoah. I saw people calling him names and things like that. That just don't be that.
Dude was shaken up and they took him out. He could tell he was not going to be able to continue.
And he pitched inside and he was hitting the top corner of the zone both times. They were pretty pinpoint on the strike zone, of course, for the Blue Jays. You know, when the umpires are calling it for them. But so that was a sinker. It got away. I get it. And it sucks. And it sucks that it happened to Taylor Ward. It sucks that he's hurt. But I'm not going to feel any ill will toward Alek Manoah because number one, it was completely by accident. You could see his remorse, and it's a whole different story than you know, those pitches coming up and into Trout last year back to back, and he was able to get out of the way. And then he said, all right, bro, like stop doing that. Right. This was a flash moment. It happened so quickly, and Taylor Ward wasn't able to get out of the way. So again, the Angels, they lost on Friday, even though Lucas Giolito had a pretty decent start. He did have trouble with the home run ball. He gave up 2 home runs in that one. Angels lost 6-1 on Saturday. Again, 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. I liked Ronaldo Lopez in this one. Why do I always stumble over that? Ronaldo Lopez in this one, hitting 100 miles an hour at one point. Like, good grief, man. He is going to be incredible. And I know that they use Estevez a lot on Sunday, which gives me hope because Lopez can come in on like Monday and do what Esty does at the end of that bullpen. So we'll talk about game 3 and the win that the Angels were able to get coming right up.
It was a tough watch this weekend with runners in scoring position. Our Halos struggled, but the Blue Jays struggled too, Johnny. The pitching staff for the
Sunday,
Angels,
for sure.
They really shut them down. And so the game on Sunday was just a back and forth affair. Started early in the morning around 9 a.m., and the Angels did walk away with a 3-2 victory. And it was 1-1 for a while, and I really thought, man, that the bullpen's really stepping up. And so I was super proud of them. Johnny, can I just really high five Tyler Anderson? I know that we've given him a hard time, but he really came through in this game for the Halos and got his first out in the 7th inning this season, which was fantastic. But really, game came down to the 10th inning. Hunter Renfroe is up, and that runner at second base was moved over to third base on a sacrifice bunt. Hey, how about that?
It was Moustakis at third, and Wallach put down the bunt, Mike. It was awesome.
It was such a great move, and I love that. Put some pressure on the defense, get him to move, right? And then Renfroe hits a 2-run home run, and it was the first hit with runners in scoring position in the entire series. And then we did a show about Renfroe last week where he has not been very clutch, and this was a very clutch moment for him.
He said deuces to you two, Halo Bros.
What I loved about it, though, Johnny, is that Renfroe, you could see his veteran experience come out because he didn't lose his mind. He didn't go crazy. He knows that the Angels have been struggling. So you got a fist pump, and then he ran around the bases. And then when he got into the dugout, he was a little bit more animated, but I love that the dude acted like he's been there before, but this was a huge hit. Johnny, it wasn't over though, because then Estevez comes in and shuts down in the 9th. And then in the bottom of the 10th inning, they brought him back in. Talk about that.
Again, they're making Locked On Angels their first listen of the day because we talked about how Estevez should have been the one to come back out against the Astros and at least start the inning last weekend. And again, it's great to see, or maybe that was 2 weekends ago.
Yeah, 2 weekends.
It all just runs together, Mike, after all this Angels baseball.
Right.
Esty gets 6 outs in this one, Mike. Yeah, and even though he gave up that run from second base, I still felt calm because it was 3-2. So it really goes to show how much those add-on runs matter, that it was important that Renfroe got a 2-run home run over a solo shot.
Yeah.
It gave him a little bit more breathing room on the mound for Estevez. But again, he gave up that one hit. It was an unearned run. So it was a run, but of course the Manfred rule, you don't get a earned run against you. 2 strikeouts and then the fly out to end the game really came through in that 10th inning. The Angels find themselves 4 back in the wild card. They started at 3 before this series and then dropped to 6 or 5 and then back to 4. They're 4-2 on this road trip. Obviously they're chasing the Blue Jays and the Astros. They have to beat them and have a better record than them at the end of the year because they lost the season series to both of them. The Jays are back to playing the East, the AL East, and they have a 7-20 record in their own division. So that's good news for us. The other thing is the Angels have one more series against the Astros in August, so that gives them a chance to move up against the Astros in the wild card. But Mike, there's one thing that came up on Sunday, and it's this. The Rangers lost to the San Diego Padres, and that means the Angels have moved 5 games back from first place in the AL West. So is this a more viable option, or is it just great to have 2 paths to the playoffs? 1 4 games back, 1 5 games back. What do you think about taking the AL West? What do you think?
I think you got to control your own destiny. And so I think that the AL West should be the goal. I don't think that the wild card should be the goal, even though that would be great to get in. Here's why. Because they're going to play the Astros and they're going to play Texas. And so they're going to have an opportunity to really come through. And how we played Texas in our last series, hopefully that's an indicator of what we're able to do. I know they've made a lot of moves and I know they got a lot of arms. And so they've really loaded up. So we'll see what they can do. And then we play the Astros again as well. And I feel like we're due, right? We've been kind of dominated by them. I feel like we're due, and we can extend our bullpen with these arms in our bullpen now. And with a couple of extra hitters, maybe we can actually get some really timely hits. It didn't seem like we struggled with hitting against them. It seemed like we struggled with shutting them down and putting our foot on their throat.
Yes.
So with the bullpen that we have, I'm pretty confident, but we're still within striking distance, and it's why you keep going for it. It's why you keep leaning in, and it's why you don't give up. And it's fun to be an Angel fan right now, and it's exciting to watch what this team can do. So let's hold on to our butts as they go into Atlanta. We're only going to see Spencer Strider, and then the other 2 pitchers are guys I think that are beatable. So we could take 2 out of 3. At least that's what I'm crossing my fingers for, Johnny.
I have had Max Fried on my fantasy team since the beginning of the year, and he's been on the IL for a long time. And I was so pleased to see that he just had a rehab start on Saturday, I believe. So he won't be back until potentially Friday. So we missed Max Fried against Atlanta. The other part of this, Mike, really quick, is just the fact that you're right. They have so many more opportunities to take this into their own hands and pave the way for their own destiny and make something happen here. And they are pushing their chips in. I don't know what next year is going to look like, but at least right now, the next 2 months of baseball are going to be super interesting and super fun to watch. And we're going to be here for it. Excited to be part of this journey and excited that there's something to cheer for at the end of the day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Remember, the Angels play the Braves at 4:20 tonight, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. If you're on the YouTube side, comment below the video. Let us know that you're here. Hey, Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
So why are the Angels struggling with runners in scoring position? I think we have an answer for you, and it's something I think that you already know. You're going to see, and when we talk about it, you're going to go, yeah, that's exactly what it is. We're going to share that stat with you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, we hope you'll come back and join us for that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.